Hi guys, happy Sunday. Welcome to Travel Crafter channel. My name is Renette. Today's tutorial is on how to make this crochet bookmark. So I am using this yarn from Yarn Inspirations Peyton's Grace. It's a number 3 lightweight yarn. My crochet hook is number 3.5 millimeter crochet hook, and you will be needing a tapestry needle and your scissors. So I already made one piece of this bookmark, and this is how it's supposed to work. So you put your bookmark at the corner, at the upper corner of the right side or on the left side, doesn't matter. So this tutorial, we will go ahead and do the second piece for this crochet bookmark. So go ahead, make a slip knot and then chain 5. Once you're done with the 5 chains, you skip 3 chains from the hook and put a double crochet into that chain 4. And the 3 chains that we skipped, that is counted as our first double crochet. And then chain 2 and do 2 more double crochets all into that 4th chain from the hook. So here we are doing a double crochet cluster, and then chain 2, yarn over and do a double crochet into that 5th and last chain on that row. Okay, so 1 double crochet and put another double crochet into that 5th chain or the last chain on this row. And this is how our fabric looks like right now. Okay, so turn your work. We do a slip stitch, chain 3, that's our first double crochet, do another double crochet and then chain 2, yarn over, do 2 more double crochets all into the chain 2 space. From there on, we will chain 2, 1 and 2, and do double crochet clusters all into the chain 2 space at the end of this row. So this is how our work looks like at this point. Showing you here my finished project. So the first 2 rows that we just did is a setup of the succeeding rows between the V-stitch row and the shell stitch row. So 1 and 2nd row are the setup rows for our succeeding rows. 3rd row is where we create the V-stitch. So turn your work. Slip stitch into the 2 chain space. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. That's our first double crochet. Yarn over, do another 1 double crochet, chain 2, and do 2 more double crochets all into this chain 2 space. And then chain 2, and we will do a V-stitch on this chain 2 space. V-stitch is 2 double crochets. V-stitch is 1 double crochet, 2 chains, and another double crochet. So V-stitch again that we just did is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and put another 1 double crochet. And then you chain 2, and now you reach the 2 chain space at the end of this row, and that we will do the double crochet clusters. So 1 double crochet, another double crochet, chain 2, and do 2 more double crochets all into the 2 chain space to create our double crochet clusters at the end of every row. So there you have it. Now the third row, we just created the V-stitch. So this work, we will do a 2 pattern repeat. The V-stitch row, which was the third row, and then the fourth row that we will be doing is the shell stitch. So turn your work. Again, make a slip stitch on the 2 chain space at the beginning of this row, and every other row that we will do, chain 3. That's the first double crochet. Do another double crochet, chain 2, and do 2 more double crochets all into the 2 chain space at the start of every row. So this is our fourth row, and we will do shell stitches. Okay, so after you do the double crochet clusters, chain 2 and put 1 single crochet on top of the second double crochet from the previous row, and then yarn over. You reach the V-stitch. So the V-stitch, you have to put 7 double crochets all into that V-stitch, the V-stitch row to create the shell stitches. So 7 double crochets to create the shell stitch clusters. And it all goes into that V-stitch from the previous round. Okay, and then you make 1 single crochet on top of the single crochet from the previous row. And then chain 2, and you reach the chain 2 space at the end of this row, and we will do a double crochet clusters. So chain 2, 1, 2, and then yarn over, do 2 double crochets, chain 2, 1, 2, and put 2 more double crochets all into the chain 2 space at the end of this row and our succeeding rows. So as you can see, on our fourth row, we created the first shell stitch clusters. Okay, so on our fifth row, we will be doing a V-stitch row. So on the 2 chain space, we do the double crochet clusters, and then at the end of your double crochet clusters, you chain 2, and we will do a V-stitch into the single crochet from the previous round. So V-stitch again is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and do another double crochet. And then you chain 2, find the middle of the shell stitch, which is the 4th double crochet, and put a single crochet on that side. And then chain 2, and then you are ready to do another V-stitch on top of this previous single crochet. And then chain 2, and now you reach the chain 2 space at the end of this row, and it means we will do the double crochet clusters. And this is how our project looks like. So you can see that we had created the V-stitches on our row. So turn your work. And as usual, we will slip stitch into the chain 2 space, chain 3, and we will be doing the double crochet clusters. And remember, the double crochet clusters will be done at the beginning of each row and at the end of each row. So this is now a shell stitch pattern that we are doing. So after the double crochet clusters, we chain 2, single crochet, and then yarn over, and on your V-stitch you are ready to put 7 double crochets to create the shell stitch clusters. Just move your make adjustments to accommodate all the 7 double crochets for the shell stitch. So on that single crochet, we put a single crochet. And then on that V-stitch, you put another 7 double crochets to create your shell stitch clusters. 7 double crochets all into the V-stitch from the previous round. Okay, when you have 7, you will make a single crochet into the top of the 2nd double crochet from the previous round, and then you chain 2 and do your double crochet clusters into the last chain 2 space. So at this point, we created 2 shell stitch clusters. There you go. You can see, I hope, with the color I used of the yarn is maybe too light. Hopefully you'd be able to get it. So turn your work. So on this row now, the new row that we are on, we will do the V-stitches. So double crochet clusters into that first 2 chain space. Okay, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and you are ready to do a V-stitch on top of the single crochet from the previous round. So again, the V stitch is 1 double crochet, 2 chains, and another double crochet, and then chain 2. Find the middle of your shell stitch, which is the 4th double crochet. Put 1 single crochet, chain 2, and then you are ready to put another V stitch on top of the single crochet from the previous row. And then V stitch is 1 single crochet, chain 2, another 1 double crochet, and then find the middle of the shell stitch and put a single crochet, chain 2, make another V stitch, chain 2, and then do your double crochet clusters at the end of the 2 chains space that we have. And now we have the V stitches row completed. And turn your work. And then we are ready to do the shell stitch clusters on our next row. So slip stitch, chain 3, 1 double crochet, chain 2, do 2 more double crochets all into the 2 chain space at the beginning of our row. Then chain 2, one, 2, and then we are ready to put a single crochet on top of the 2nd double crochet from the previous round, and then yarn over, and you reach your V stitch where we put 7 double crochets to create our shell stitch cluster. So just keep repeating the pattern that I told you, and hopefully you will be able to carry on your own. Okay, so let me just go through it with you again. So here I am doing another 7 double crochets to create my shell stitch clusters. Make sure you count so you don't end up doing more double crochets for that shell stitch. Then do a single crochet on top of the single crochet from the previous round. Chain 2, and then do 7 more double crochets to create your shell stitch clusters. 7 double crochets to create your shell stitch cluster. And then on top of that 2nd double crochet from the previous round, you put 1 single crochet, and then chain 2, and you reach the last 2 chain space. So now at this point we have 3 shell stitch clusters. So on my project I did 4 shell stitch clusters, and that I ended on that after I did the 4 shell stitch clusters. So on this row now we are doing the V stitches. So I will let you do it on your own. And I will be back when we are ready to do the last row for our shell stitch clusters. So here's just showing you that we created the V stitches at this point. So our next and last row is a shell stitch cluster row, and we will be doing 4 shell stitch clusters to end this row. Okay, at this point, so I am doing the last row of my first double crochet and do another row. Double crochet. So chain 3, do one more double crochet, chain all into the chain 2 space, and put 2 more double crochets all into the 2 chain space. So again, this will be my final row. On this final row, I will have single crochet on top of the second double crochet from the previous round. Yarn over, or the shell stitch cluster, 7 double crochets into the same repeat pattern from the previous round, repeat pattern to create between the V stitch, shell stitch and cluster, doing the 7 shell stitch cluster. So I will be back after I will finish this chain shell stitch cluster row, single crochet, which will be my final row for my yarn fabric. Do 7 double crochets into the V stitch from the previous round. Make sure you have the right amount of double crochets. Keep track of your numbers. Okay, and then do another single crochet on top of the single crochet from the previous round. Yarn over and do 7 double crochets into the V stitch from the previous round. And this creates another shell stitch clusters. Okay, and then put another single crochet on top of the single crochet from the previous round. Yarn over, and then you put 7 double crochets into that V stitch from the previous row. Try to adjust the double crochets in that V stitch chain. Okay, do 1 single crochet on the second double crochet from the previous row, and then do your double crochet clusters into that chain 2 space on this row, and that will be our last. So this is how it looks like right now. We have
just showing
4
you here
shell stitch
how
clusters
the fabric looks like
at the
this
end
point
of our
so on my last row I have 4
and my project
shell
measures
stitch clusters
about 5.8 inches
it's
in
a cute
length.
pattern,
And then the width, the longest width is about 2.8
it's not a lot
inches.
to memorize because we only have to do the 2
measurement.
the 2 rows repeat.
So how
so
I
at
do
the end
it
of
to end this row,
my
like
row,
I leave about
I will
18
just
inches,
cut the yarn or trim out the extra
edges.
yarn. I
How
left
I did
myself
was to
about
put the
12
right
to 18
side
inches of
facing
yarn, extra yarn,
facing
so
together,
I can seam
and
the
then
edges together.
I seamed. So what we will do
the
here,
edges, seaming up the straight lines or the sides
I used the
together.
whip stitch method.
Okay.
You can do
So I just decided to use my tapestry needle
you work
to
with,
put the 2
and
pieces
the idea
together.
here is just to close the edges.
I put
so you can
the right side down,
where
and
we
then
put
I
seamed on our book
the edges,
so just
using
go
my
ahead
tapestry needle.
and
So
do the seam.
the right side
on the
are
edges
down,
of
they're
this
facing each
bookmarker.
other, and I am working on the back side of my fabric, like how you see here. Lay them straight together. So right side, 2 right sides should be facing each other, and we will seam the edges of this fabric. Okay, so I will be using my tapestry needle to do that. If you have a better technique of closing up your fabric, you can go ahead and do that. Be creative. Do how you feel comfortable with most, and it's just closing in the edges. So this is how my fabric looks like right now. This is the inside of my project, and this is how it looks like after I seamed in and cut off all the extra yarns. This is my book, and just an example. You put your bookmarker in the corner, top right hand corner. Mine came out quite loose, but I'll just have to make some adjustments with this, but I like how it looks like. And I use this book every day, so like I really need to put a bookmarker here. And this is my final product. So thank you so much for watching.